Good afternoon. I know everyone wants to get to lunch, so I don't want to make you wait any longer. Please, if you would turn off your cell phones. My name is Sean. I'll be your host. As you know, we're here to honor Harold Vitale, one of our longtime patrons who always sat right here. That's why we called it front and center, where the hat is. He usually had a fedora on, and his seat is reserved for the program, so he can watch as we have a little fun with him and also pay him our respects. If you'd like to be on our email list, the box is over on that table. So everyone should have a program. If you did not get a program and want one, I can print you on demand. Let me know. Give me your name and number, and I'll get a program for you. But if you'll look at page 1, where the menu is, if you have a yellow sticker with, like that one, who has that? Raise your hand. Oh, okay. No one has it? I planned this very carefully now. Everyone look at all the programs. Are there any programs left that haven't been taken? Oh my. Okay, well, I'll have to blame the printer then. We need another way to do this. Give us a minute. What's that? Does anyone have a V in their last name? Letter V. V as in Vitale, this gentleman. David Javersack does. This is not a setup, I promise you. David Javersack, you have the honor of being first in line, just like Harold Vitale, to get food. Please lead us. And we open the food line with David Javersack after we get his picture. I don't know what happened to my secret program. Yeah, I know. I put it in one of them and then I deleted it thinking I'd printed it, and obviously it didn't print. Yeah. Okay. So after David gets his food, if you will now proceed this way, we'll go here, then here, and then here, in an orderly fashion, as orderly a fashion as possible, and get a plate of food. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that, and then we'll proceed. Okay, while that's happening, Julia and my mom, after mom gets her food, we're just going to bring around a soft drink you may or may not have heard of. Those of you who were students of Harold have heard of it. It's called Moxie, and you can only get it in New England, but now that there's Amazon, you can get it in Wheeling, too. So we're going to bring around cans and little cups. Please share. There's a case. There's not enough for everyone if you have the whole can. So just share the cans and pour a little in the cup and then stand by, because we're going to have a toast to Harold. That'll be one of the first things we do. made Moxie here, or something called Moxie? I'm told there was a drink called Moxie made at Stratford Springs. I did not know that. Okay, at the next table can go to the food. You can go too. Whoever wants to get in line, go ahead. Make a line out the back. You are the most orderly. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Everyone can get in line. Just get in line. It used to be a free-for-all. So while that's happening, yeah. Huh? I know. Yeah, if Harold was here, he would have already been up there, and the rest of you would have followed. So this Thursday at noon, we have a program, a special program about your favorite team in mind, the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's actually about Coach Dick LeBeau, the inventor of the zone blitz defense. Remember those guys? And so the author of the book who wrote it with Dick LeBeau is called George Von Bunko, and he will be here this Thursday at noon. And next Tuesday, we have a Christmas concert in this room featuring the Young Patriots and the Voices of Freedom choirs from Wheeling Park High School. So 33 students will be singing Christmas carols for you on Tuesday the 17th. And then we'll be on hiatus for 2 weeks because Tuesday is Christmas Eve and then New Year's Eve, so the library will be closed. We open again on January 7th with a program. And by the way, the new brochures are out on the tables. The new program on January 7th featuring Mary Bess Halford is about Adam and Eve. Some iconography, artwork that dealt with their sort of apocryphal lives, and it was very popular in Europe up until the Reformation. That will be our opening program for 2025. Even though no one is listening to me, I will continue to rabble. Let me know when you're all fed and satisfied, and we'll continue. Does everyone have a Moxie? I need some Moxie. Okay, apparently we have enough moxie for everyone. You guys want to get in line? Have you been to the food line yet? Go ahead. Yeah. Anyone who hasn't been in the food line, feel free. So I'll just share a few of my memories of Harold before we start. I've been working here for almost 19 years, maybe 19. And I don't remember a single program without Harold Vitale being here. Well, that's not true, but at least he went as far back as I did. He would sometimes miss, but about 95% of the time, he was either the first one here or among the first three who came in the door. He usually wore a fedora, and he would put his jacket and fedora on the chair over here. And that's how I knew he was here. And then he would follow me around and talk to me about whatever was on his mind that day. And I'm trying to set up the tech, and Harold's like, have you heard any this about the Titanic, or have you heard whatever it was. And he had that booming voice. So he'd be out here talking to other people, and I could hear every word he was saying. Like I said, he always sat right in the middle there. But many of the time I had to say, Harold, I really can't talk to you and do this at the same time. That would not faze him in the least. He would continue to talk. He'd maybe take a 1-minute break. But, and over the years, I don't know, maybe in part because he felt bad about that, but he gave me all these sharks that he accumulated that you see up here from yard sales and flea markets and whatever. My favorite one is the Stay Jawsome picture, because every time I look at that, I think Harold's telling me to stay jawsome. And so that's my collection of sharks. There probably were more. He would bring in little cartoons and clippings. They're up there somewhere, but I couldn't find everything. But yeah, he was a generous man. Notes. He took copious notes. He sat there and wrote down, and I think we need to get those notes. I don't know what happened to them, but they should be in the library archive because they were notes on our programs. So if anyone knows, maybe you can help me out. He also, one other thing I remember is, like if I made a program like that, he would always, without fail, find a typo or a mistake. And I would always say, Harold, did you proofread my brochure yet? And he would point it out, and then, I would fix it. But Didn't matter how many other proofreaders I had or how many times it was edited, he always found something. So that's the teacher in Harold. Okay. Does everyone now have, people are still waiting in food line. We'll give them another few minutes. I'm going to hand it off just temporarily. Well, maybe I should do this. This is Harold. When we made a video about werewolves of Wheeling, and we asked people to do a werewolf scream as if they were being mauled, this was Harold's contribution to that. And this is me being attacked by the werewolf, and that is actually Harold's hand inside the mask of the werewolf. So anything like that, he was always here. So we would recruit him to do little acting bits. There he is howling at the moon with some of you. And yeah, I told you, he was the master of trivia, so he was always telling me things. And I wish I had written more of them down because, again, I was trying to do 3 things at once, but yeah. And there's a picture of Moxie in the bottle. So we told you all about that. Well, this is my toast, so let's hold off on that. Meanwhile, I'll go to the next thing so we can get that done too. Okay, here's something I didn't know until like yesterday. Harold Vitale, this man's nickname was Lard. He was a coal miner, and he was famous for coaching post-1 Legion baseball teams to several championships in the state. And this was Harold's dad. I didn't know that. I saw this picture on eBay, and I thought, well, look at that. There's Harold Vitale, who's a coal miner. It didn't occur to me that it could be his father, even though it's an unusual name. I just thought it was a coincidence, so I bought the picture, and so there it is. As you can see, and it's in your program as well, Don Clegg, the sports writer, is the one who confirmed. And then I looked up the obituaries, and yeah, that's his dad. So interesting. And he introduced us to this man, a man named Chester Greenwood, who, what did he do? He invented the earmuff. That's his actual patent application right there. So Harold became obsessed with this guy and created a club for his students called the Chester Greenwood Club, which I'm sure you'll hear more about. And every year they would celebrate it on December 21st. That's why we're doing this in December, more or less. Now, Julia's going to bring out a little gift for you. These are earmuffs. And they have the little Harold sticker on them. So when everyone has one, we'll all put them on, and we're going to take a group picture and hold up the Moxie cans as well, and then we'll do the toast. So those of you watching at home, if you're on Facebook or on YouTube, feel free to post comments about Harold, and if we have occasion, we'll read them out here. But you can share your thoughts online. And even if it's not live, you can still do that. So please share any comments you have about Harold. Looks like we're close. These are not traditional earmuffs. They go around the back of your head. But for $1, they're not bad. Because the traditional earmuffs were at least $8 a piece. And there's no way Harold would have ever spent that much money on earmuffs. Even $1 is probably too much. And the other thing I want to say, if you've seen the program, it is meant to be humorous. You know, Harold, what it took me a few years to learn was that he had a very dry, sometimes undetectable sense of humor. But he zinged me a lot, and when I would zing him back, he would just maybe nod his head and then go on and zing me again. But he was a funny guy once you got to know him. Yeah. So yeah, we made fun of him a little bit in there, but also it's really meant to be respectful, and we loved Harold. So you only make fun of the ones you love, right? Okay, are we almost ready for the toast? We're going to do the toast, and then I'm going to hand it off to one of Harold's students, Rex. But first we have to get a picture. So when you, if I could have everyone stand up. If you're able, yeah. Hold them up. Hold up some Moxie cans too. I can't see as well as I used to, so I have to take off my glasses. To Harold Vitale, illegitimi non carbonundrum. I may have mispronounced that. It's not even a real Latin phrase. But it means what, Rex? There you go. To Harold. So Rex, I'm going to bring you up.
Sir. Okay. I will figure out where to put the microphone here. Not slides, my little talk. Okay. Is the loudness about right for this? Okay. I'm happy to be here for the dedication of the Library Auditorium for Harold Eugene Vitale. After we all graduated, he said, "Please call me Harold." Never able to do it. It was always Mr. Vitale from then on. I, along with several of my classmates and my dearest friends, had the experience of our young lives of being students of Mr. Vitale. My family moved to Moundsville in the summer of 1968, a couple of months before the opening of the brand new consolidated high school, John Marshall High School, and I was there the day it opened as a sophomore and had a class under Mr. Vitale my sophomore year, and went up to senior year. This is before the age of advanced placement courses, you know, the AP courses and all that kind of stuff. There was one course that you had to petition to be accepted in, and that was Contemporary World Problems, Social Studies, under Mr. Vitale. Our textbook was Time Magazine. We each got a Time Magazine, and when it came out, he gave you your weekly edition of Time Magazine and assigned the articles in the Time Magazine we were going to discuss the next class. And we did that throughout the year. My small group benefited from taking classes under him, and also some of us were in the DeMolay organization, a youth group under the Freemasons, which Mr. Vitale was a Freemason and a high-ranking Freemason in the state of West Virginia his entire life. He exposed us there. to his guidance and intelligence. And also at John Marshall, especially in the early years, we had a lot of free time. We had time between classes, sometimes a half hour, sometimes 15 minutes, it depended. And a lot of the students hung out in the commons, in the cafeteria area, and, you know, shot spitwads, whatever you do down there. Some of us hung out in the social studies offices and spent more time with Mr. Vitale there. He impressed us, as he impressed so many others who were exposed to him, and other seekers of knowledge here at the library, at the Lunch with Books series, and many other aspects in the regions, with his intelligence, with the depth and breadth of his knowledge. He was, to us, the embodiment of the great libraries of antiquity and the encyclopedias which our families owned to give us little snippets of information about every topic possible. He was that encyclopedia incarnate. He taught not just the facts of history and the intricacies of government in his social studies classes, but we also learned from him that learning is and should be a lifelong, fun, and enjoyable activity. As the best teachers all know, you don't just teach the curriculum of your course, you teach kids how to learn and how to encourage their natural tendency to broaden their knowledge and expand their experience. I wanted to be a doctor since the time I was 6. And through elementary school, high school, college, med school, residency, all my continuing medical education, I've been exposed to thousands of teachers, lecturers, and everything. And I can honestly say that Mr. Vitale was the one shining example of someone who taught me not just what he was teaching, but to get interested in learning everything. He taught me, and a lesson that I've learned throughout life, no knowledge is wasted, no piece of information is trivial, that it may be used later to mesh with some other piece of information from something else entirely to synthesize some new concept. And I learned this from him and continue to do this to this day. Since my retirement, I'm learning how to make music in 2 or 3 different ways, learning Spanish, dabbling in computer programming, those kinds of things. And all this I owe to Mr. Vitale. Every little piece of knowledge, like I say, is important. And we used to try to stump him in our classes and get him off topic. And I particularly recall one class where someone brought something up, and of course this is in the Vietnam era, about the torture in Southeast Asia. And he proceeded for the remainder of the class to teach us various torture methods of Chinese, Vietnamese, et cetera, and we left there thinking we really pulled one over on him. The quiz next week was on torture methods of Southeast Asia. We graduated, and as has been mentioned, Mr. Vitale was expert at finding out what your interests were and providing you with stuff, like the sharks and everything. Somehow he got the idea that I liked the Spanish painter El Greco, and gave me a copy of El Greco's Crucifixion at my graduation. That was one of the things that I got from him, and a little plaque, which I wish I still had, that said, "There is no heavier burden than a great potential." So after we graduated, sometime later, Mr. Vitale, about 10 years, I think, later, formed the Chester Greenwood Club. Chester Greenwood invented the earmuffs, as we mentioned, but what you don't realize is that Chester Greenwood is considered one of the top 10 or 15 inventors in American history, because he not only invented the earmuff, he invented every piece of machinery in the factory that made earmuffs, as well as several other industrial machinery and all that kind of stuff. And so he didn't invent things except the earmuff that people used. He invented the things that made the stuff you used, and is considered by many to be one of the great inventors of American history. From Farmington, Maine, and Mr. Vitale formed the Chester Greenwood Club, and after we had all graduated 10 years or so later, we were the only class of 1971 who became members of the Chester Greenwood Club who weren't current members of his class, but he would present them with their membership cards, et cetera, when they were taking his Contemporary World Problems course, and present them with the Chester Greenwood thing. And remember, always keep December 21st. And next year in Farmington was another thing, which is where Chester Greenwood grew up. So these are some of the things that I recall about Mr. Vitale from my experience. We have several other members of the class of 1971 and the Chester Greenwood Club here today to honor him. And I would ask if any of you have anything you would like to say.
Don't get lost. I'm Bob Hines. I was also in the same class with Rex and some of the other folks in the back of the room there in the class of 71 at John Marshall. I, like many of them, first met Mr. Vitale as a young DeMolay. And so why do I mention that? Well, the values that we learned as young DeMolays are common to almost any Judeo-Christian religion. And it's really independent of any religion, but they're the values that most of us think as ethics, good ethics. So we're not just talking about, an experience from 50 years ago. The things that we learned from Mr. Vitale outside the classroom and in the classroom have served me and us through our entire lives in trying to be good citizens, good parents, good husbands, good fathers, good in our profession. Now, the thing that I remember most about Mr. Vitale is his passion for getting us to think critically for ourselves. Rex mentioned that we used to get the Time magazine was our textbook. That was very unusual in the late 60s to have a class with a contemporary magazine, a news magazine, as a textbook. And so the craziest thing that Mr. Vitale used to do was he would give us our assignments and say, okay, you read this article and you're going to come in tomorrow and you're going to discuss this position. Maybe it was the Vietnam War, right or wrong, and all kinds of political things that were going on at the time. And then you'd come to class the next day and he'd say, okay, I assigned you to be pro, we need to finish the war in Vietnam. Now, you have to argue the opposite point of view. And it forced us to understand an event, a situation, a philosophy from the other person's point of view. And along with that, it was to make those conclusions about why you feel one way or the other based on facts. Critical thinking based on facts. And Lord knows we could use a lot of that now. So that's my story about Mr. Vitale and how he influenced me positively. I will say, I visited Mecca earlier this year. I went to Farmington, Maine, in search of earmuffs. They had none. The shell of the factory still sits at the end of town. and I spoke to people in Farmington, only one of whom knew who Chester Greenwood was. So look at the influence Harold Vitale had on one great inventor's. Oh, by the way, he was 15 years old when he invented earmuffs. One influence that Harold had on the rest of us, but that passion for facts and trivia is something left over from our relationship with Harold that will stick with us the rest of our lives. So thank you for the opportunity to say nice things about a mentor, a friend, and a teacher.
Anyone else want to talk? And I would recommend a topic of after we graduated, what we had.
Yes. Just for people at home. Oh, okay.
My name is David Javersack. I didn't meet Harold Vitale until I showed up here about 15 years ago to give some lectures. And those of you who know me know I love to give lectures. That's my wife. That's why my wife's not here today, because she assumed I would be making a lecture. 3 people show up on a corner and I give a lecture. And I saw this guy taking notes, and I'm thinking, have I done something wrong? Why is he taking notes? And I found out a little bit about him. Jim Stoltz, who grew up in Moundsville, had told me some things about him. But the influence of Harold Vitale came in a much different way than most of you experienced him as graduates of John Marshall High School. I taught at West Liberty for 39 years, and I started teaching in 1969. And I noticed that the best social studies students that I had, the ones who were most knowledgeable about American history, all had something in common. And what they had in common was that they were graduates of John Marshall High School. It was amazing, because I would say, I said, did you go to John Marshall? And they said, yeah, how'd you know that? And I said, well, it's just an educated guess. So sometimes the influence of an individual reaches beyond people that you don't know. And I think Harold's influence is very good, as attested to the kind remarks that you gentlemen have made today.
Many of you would just stand. Well, one of the years, I graduated in 78, so I'm young compared to most of you. She's scowling at me. We had the mod system. You guys have the mod system? Yes. Okay, so you can be young too. My best memories of him were in class, just sitting there, forgetting that I was in class, because he would talk about scrimshaw, and he would talk about suits, and how if it wasn't 3 pieces with a vest, it wasn't a suit. And after that, I remember thinking, I'm never going to meet someone like this again. Well, how wrong was I? Because I was also someone who liked to wear ties back then, and I would go to the Salvation Army in Wheeling to look for old-fashioned ties that were paisley and all these different designs. And of course, where would I find him? In the Salvation Army. I walked in one day, and all of a sudden, he thrust 2 grocery bags into my arms. He said, take these, here's 2 quarters. It was quarter a bag day, and each bag had a overcoat, a top coat, a wool top coat in it. One of them was Hart Scheffner Marks, and he made sure I knew that. It's Hart Scheffner Marks. And I still have them to this day from back then. To show you the kind of guy that he was to all the students, I know you already know this, but we would have conversations, and And in talking, one day I invited him to come to church with me. I was going at that time to a church in Pittsburgh, and he was interested. He said, yeah, okay. So I figured, he's an adult. I would see him there. I gave him directions. He said, I'll ride with you. So I ended up riding him to church. I don't know how long we did that, but that's how he got into our lives, You would talk about something and, oh yeah, you're riding me. I'm going with you. So I'm glad this is happening. I'm glad I got to be a part of this and meet some more of you guys.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello, my name is Jim Stoltz, and I live in Moundsville. I'm also the president of the Moundsville Marshall County Library Board. And Harold was also very generous, a wonderful gift that we received from his estate. And just to let you know what we're going to do with that money, we're going to create a special historical lecture series that hopefully will evolve over a number of years to try to bring in a prominent, nationally known historian, maybe a current book writer. Of course, the prices can get out of line, but somebody that's got some real interest, and bring them to Moundsville in conjunction with the Marshall County Historical Society and also Strand Theater, and do a lecture. And it'll be named after Harold, kind of continuing that aspect of Harold's legacy. A couple other quick things. I'm an oldster. I graduated in 1963 from Moundsville High School. Somebody else did too. I won't point that out. Anyway, in the class with Harold, 1961-62, winter. Moundsville High School was at the time a coal-fired heating system. You couldn't control the heat in a lot of the rooms. We were in a corner classroom, open windows on the west side and north side to keep it cool. Harold's at the blackboard with just plain white chalk, scratching away. Somebody picks up enough snow from the outside of the window, makes a snowball, throws it up, smashes it against the board. Harold turns around, don't do that again. Goes to the next section of board and continues to write down what he was saying. Didn't hesitate, didn't say anything else. Everybody was flabbergasted. He wasn't bad. He just continued. It didn't interfere with what he was trying to do. And I remember 2 years ago, a fellow by the name of Joe Komorowski. He was a close friend of, some of you know Joe, close friend of Harold's who also taught at John Marshall. And unfortunately, Joe had died, and the service was at the Russian Orthodox Church in Barton, Ohio. So Harold called and asked me if I'd be willing to take him over to the church, and I said sure. So we went over for the service, and Joe's sister, Mary Ellen Komorowski, also was a teacher at John Marshall at one time. And anyway, very strong Russian orientation there and so on, from the church service itself, and just as Harold and I were talking about Joe on the way back. So he told me this story. He said that a number of years ago, in this pamphlet today, on the second page, there's a story about Harold teaching about Imperial Russia. So apparently he was involved in Imperial Russia, this history lecture he's giving, or a partial lecture, and Joe had provided him some information that was helpful because of his Russian background. So in following up on this, apparently Harold or Joe, I'm not sure which, but one of the two of them contacted the Russian embassy, and this was during Cold War, and they couldn't, several letters were exchanged, gathering additional information and so on. Harold said that one day at John Marshall, early in his career there, two guys come in and wanted to see him, and they're from the FBI. And they wanted to know what he was doing if this Russian embassy contacted and so on. And I assume they talked to Joe Komorowski too, but in any event, that obviously didn't amount to anything, but it was quite a shock for Harold to have these two FBI guys come in and check him out. And the final thing I'll tell you, it's sad, but it's something that I'll remember. In late May of 2023, and Harold died in June, as you know, in early June in 2023. So my family, we were on vacation in the Carolinas, beach vacation. So over the years, Harold would contact me. He's the only guy I knew that still read the TV Guide, and he subscribed to that on a regular basis. And he would periodically call me and say, Jim, this program is going to be on at this time. Why don't you take a look at that and give me a call back and we'll talk about it, some history-based program. So I would do that. So anyway, so we're on vacation, come back, the answering machine has a couple messages on there, so I open up the message, and here it's Harold telling me to watch this specific program on Wednesday or whatever night it was, and give me a call and we'll talk about it. He died right after that. I didn't get a chance to talk to him. He was already dead by the time we got back from vacation. So that last recording was the last contact I had with his voice and with him. But obviously he's the kind of guy, to the very end, he was still continuing, just as Harold always did, living the kind of lifestyle and doing the kind of things that he enjoyed. And God bless him, a good man.
My name is Alan Boyd. I did not go to John Marshall. I graduated from Philadelphia High School. One of the things that I wanted to mention, my wife was a cousin of him, and one time when he went overseas, he had his mother Ruth sew pockets inside of his shirts with zippers on them, I believe. Is that correct? And because of the pickpockets. So we all knew him as Gene. And, if he'd send a Christmas card or something, he signed it Gene, to us. But what I really wanted to mention here, my sister-in-law, Debbie, and my brother-in-law, Vernon, they promised, the daughters promised Aunt Ruth when she was passing away that they would watch after Gene. And Debbie and Vernon, with the other two passing away, had the full responsibility for doing it. And they kept him as family the whole time. He was at every major holiday down there. The children and the grandchildren, he was at everything that they went to for them. Was scheduled to go a day after he passed away to one of the granddaughter's graduations. But they did a tremendous job of keeping him going the whole time and made him really, they were his family. Would you two please stand up?
My name is Bill Sandiford. Gary Ryder and I were fortunate enough to teach with Harold, and that was just the beginning. He never called us by our first names. It was always Mr. Sandiford, Mr. Ryder. When he retired, he bought us all T-shirts with that Latin phrase, "Don't let the bastard grind you down." And when I retired, he bought me a little picture frame the size of a dollar bill, and it said, "In case of emergency, use this, but don't break the glass." I was in graduate school one summer, and we had studied about Frederick Jackson Turner, who wrote about the frontier experience in America. I called Harold, and I said, "Do you have any books that might help me? I'll get back to you in a few minutes." When he called me back, he had titles, page numbers, authors. He was like a research librarian, and it probably took him 15 minutes at the most to do all that. He was a tremendous guy. He would bring top-notch clothes to people at our school. He'd find a sport coat. So-and-so might like this. It might not have been the right size, but he brought it to school anyway. The last time I saw him at Center Market, his car in the back seat was filled to the window with stuff. And I live in a Grove, and I know where Harold lived. The dumpsters were there forever, sorting through the good stuff, which hopefully got saved, and a lot of the stuff that he saved anyway. A friend of mine had a Corvette that Harold would let him keep in that garage until the garage got so full of magazines and books that the car wouldn't fit. And when we moved from the house to where we live now, we had a garage sale. I had textbooks that were 20 years old. He had walked from the Elm Terrace Shopping Center to the top of the hill where we lived. He was furious that I was throwing away a 20-year-old textbook. And he took it. And it probably was in that garage somewhere. You wouldn't want to meet a nicer, dedicated guy to whatever cause it was. And Gary Ryder also taught with him.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Bill Orkowski. I've known Harold for many, many years and ate with him down the Center Market House on a regular basis on Tuesdays. And if I was feeling low or needed to see somebody, I'd go down any other day and he'd be down there. Guy never cooked at all. He ate out 7 days a week. But it always walked down to the Center Market, and his car was always parked down by Cadello's in a space that didn't have a meter because he didn't want to spend the money on meters. Even though he told me he had something like $17,000 stuck in his car just for emergencies. For meals, usually, if you ordered from Coleman's, you'd have the fish sandwich, leave the bread off. You'd always have ice cream. You'd have to nuke the ice cream to melt it a little bit because it was too cold for him. But we sat around talking about history, and he always had a newspaper. He got 2 newspapers, morning and afternoon editions. They came at the same time every day at his door. You know how much it costs to subscribe to the newspapers nowadays? But it'd pull out this day in history, and it'd say out loud. Most of the time, most of the things he lived through, the stuff that they were talking about in the paper, but he's a heck of a guy. I invited him to the Jamboree one night. Lionel Cartwright was playing, and he's a former student of his. Well, that happened to be the night that I fell and broke my wrist, and had to sit it out in a wheelchair the rest of the night. And so after the show, here I am getting ready to go. Harold's behind me, pushed me from the orchestra pit all the way up to the Capitol Music Hall and outside. He was probably 83, 84 at the time. None of the younger people would even step in and do that. But I owe that case in my life because I had a triple bypass while they had me at the hospital. So that probably saved my life. So we talk about Harold practically every day down the Market House. I still go down, get my ice cream from them. That's it.
I had for years the privilege and the pleasure of sitting at that front table with Harold. He invited me there. It was a very informative and very interesting time, and he had no obligation to do any of that. Thank you, Harold.
I think I knew Harold longer than any of you because I went to Bridge Street Junior High School in the 50s, and when I got there, I learned that Harold was the head monitor of all of the monitors in the hallways at Bridge Street Junior High. He never changed. He was the same person as head monitor at Bridge Street Junior High in the 1950s as he was sitting here at this middle table from then on.
We'll wrap this up. I want to mention one person who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, Robin Capehart, who was one of our classmates from 1971, later president at West Liberty and at Bluefield. Lives in Tennessee now and unable to make it. I believe he's watching online, and I thank him very much for giving up his MC duties to me. As Professor Tversky in the back mentioned, when he talks about lectures, I've often said, I will give a lecture anytime, anywhere, and 10 minutes into the lecture, tell me what the topic is. I'm willing to talk anytime. One of the things that Robin, I believe it was, said, which was very interesting about Mr. Vitale, is that in spite of the intensely political stuff that he was teaching us, during the time he was a teacher, he asked, does any of you remember what his political views were? And we didn't, because as Bob Hines said, he made us think about both sides of the issue and be willing to argue each side of the issue, because that was exactly what was needed to teach us to think critically. As everybody in the room will attest, Mr. Vitale was virtually always the smartest person in the room. There was nothing you could bring up that he didn't know as much as you did about, and oftentimes more, and was always willing to pass this information on. After we graduated, we always invited him to our reunions when we would get together for birthday celebrations, for retirement celebrations, whatever. We would invite Mr. Vitale, and he would invariably show up, oftentimes with things to hand out to us that he had found that he found interesting. Again, I am very privileged to have been exposed to him at a young age, and it altered the person that I've become. Thank you all for your attendance. Sean?
Thanks, Rex. Okay, so just a couple of things left to do, but first of all, one of his students, Dick Joltes, posted on Facebook that Harold was an awesome teacher, an inveterate raconteur, and a cherished friend. And I encourage you to read in the program his eulogy. I called it a eulogy because he wrote it the day after he died, which is very good. And another person, Linda Dunlap, said, I saw him at every book sale. And that's what Rebecca Corella said too. So first thing, we'll unveil what's at his seat. If you would do the honors. Director of the library, Amy Kastigar. So this will remain in place, hopefully. And you can come look at it. It says Harold Seat, and it's just a silver plaque, and it has a picture on it. So that'll stay there. And then we'll go into the hallway if you want to see the bronze plaque, and we'll unveil that. So come on out. If you don't want to, you stay. You can come see it later. We're not insured for that. There's some left. Okay, anyone else? A couple minutes. Still filing out. That's true, myself included. Gather round, gather round. Want to thank Bob who's the one who installed the plaque. You know, if you have a hammer drill, you can do pretty much anything. Yeah, come on around. So you're just gonna, it's hooked on there, so you just pull it up and over. Well, just remove the whole thing, the silver thing. Okay, ready? Here's Amy again.
Thank you all for coming today. I'm going to be very brief because I cannot speak of Mr. Vitale any better than most of you have. Oh, thank you. Sorry. After he passed, we found that he had given us an incredibly generous gift along with the Moundsville Marshall County Library and John Marshall High School. The gift, as I said, was incredibly generous and wholly unexpected. Many of you might not realize, you can walk upstairs and see some of us who have been here for ages, but part of the fabric of this library are our longtime patrons who we see every day or every week. And Mr. Vitale was one of those. I worked for years at the reference desk right before Lunch with Books started, and I could set my watch when I saw him walk through the door. Unfortunately, we did not know he was going to be so incredibly generous to us when he was walking through our doors. But afterwards, we decided that we needed to find a way to thank him. So from here on, when you book this room, you will be coming to the Harold E. Vitale Auditorium. And thank you for coming today.
Thanks, everyone. That's it. Help yourselves to food if you want some more. Thanks, Amy. Yeah, we did real good. Thank you for doing that.